Good morning, Maurice Fernandez.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and to talk about the evolutionary astrology, which is a new concept to me. I know it's been out there for decades, but I'm new to this. Can you explain us what it is and how is it different from other kind of astrology?
Yes, well, this perspective is about using astrology as a tool for personal evolution, which basically means that astrology ceases to be a deterministic tool that only describes a fixed potential. So let's say something is happening now in the skies, we don't label it negative or positive. We just see it as energy. And it has a potential to be very good or very destructive. But the, the outcome of any influence is going to be dependent on the way a person uses it or a collective uses it. So it focuses a lot on understanding the content of our consciousness and the growth and the evolution of our consciousness.
Whereas in
For example,
astrology, what does it set on? What does it look at?
well, quite often you have a natal chart or you have current events that are labeled or considered negative, disharmonious, or the other way around, positive and harmonious. And it's as if people expect things to be either good or bad. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is to understand that whatever the chart is describing, whatever astrology configurations describe, there is always an evolutionary lesson behind it. So if the person understands the lesson, they can make the best of any situation. And our role as astrologers, as evolutionary astrologers, is to understand the person's life lesson or an event's lesson. What is behind it? Why is this happening? So we don't just describe the symptoms and what is going on, but why it's there. What is the message in that particular cycle? And then if we understand the message, we can make it better. We can use that energy productively.
But it's also the evolution of the soul, isn't it? Not just
That's
our physical.
absolutely what I'm talking about, the evolution of consciousness, which when we talk about consciousness, we talk also about reincarnation, because the evolution of consciousness takes a long time. It's a very long cycle. It's not something that begins and ends in a lifetime. So a person, a baby, is already born with an active consciousness. A baby is not born blank. And so when we have the natal chart, we can see where that soul is coming from, why it's incarnating in these circumstances, and what is his or her life lesson. But as I was saying, when we understand the evolution of consciousness, we understand that astrology is just describing the energy available. For example, two people may be born at the same time in the same place and have the same astrology chart. But they're not going to necessarily have exactly the same lives, because even though they will have a lot of parallels, they will have a lot of things in common, even life events, they will choose differently in the same circumstance. And that is where the consciousness of one can be more advanced than the consciousness of another. if we look, for example, at the chart of Gandhi, who was a freedom fighter, his chart describes a lot of anger, a lot of obsessions. And because he was a more evolved, advanced person, a more conscious person, he used that anger for change. He used it to confront authority. Another person with the same astrology chart may have become someone abusive or someone that is actually hurting others and not helping others.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something some of those of you who would like to learn more about this, I have written a book about this. You can go on my website and check it out. But what is important to understand, especially with what is going on now in the world and the current influences, is that we are in a very dramatic situation. And this means, you can either use this very intense energy in a productive way, or you can sink with it. This is there's a choice there.
Yeah. So what
It's
are the
not
different?
predetermined.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit what are the different phases that you're seeing right now in the evolution of humanity, where we're at, what are the important dates, and what we can do to be able to be in those times of fast pace, things are going fast, things are quite disturbing to a lot of us. So what are we looking at here in the general evolution of humanity? Where are we at this point in time?
We are at a very critical point in time because let's explain a little bit about what is astrology. Astrology is a study of cycles. We are basically understanding that the cycles of the planet, the solar system planet in particular, describe cycles that we are experiencing on Earth. There is a parallel between what is up there and what is down here. It's not disassociated. So when we analyze planetary cycles and positions, we can see what is going on with us down here, just as we can analyze the cycle of the moon and see what a new moon brings, what a full moon brings. And this is scientific information that the cycles of the moon definitely affect a lot of processes on Earth. So astrology doesn't only focus on the moon, but on all the solar system planets and beyond. So what we are looking at now, there is an important cycle that is in the making, because it incorporates many factors, not just one, not just two, but quite a few. And the interesting thing is that all these factors are very slow moving bodies. So this means this is a process that is lasting, and it's building gradually, and it's like very, very powerful and slow forces that are moving in a particular alignment that is having a dramatic effect. If we talk about the moon moves very fast. So you have a full moon for one day, then the next day it's gone. Here, we're talking about cycles that last for a few months or even a few years. And the way they are going to be positioned in the course of these coming years, especially next year, 2010, is very, very unique. And I will say, to some extent, unprecedented. There has been previous cycles that were very similar, but none of them exactly like this one, at least not in the past 1,000 years. So let's describe what is happening. Mm-hmm. You have, since 2008, the planet Saturn opposing the planet Uranus. They were exactly opposed one another on November 4th, 2008. That's the date of the elections in the United States. Saturn and Uranus represent political orders. They represent structures of society. And when they come together, either in conjunction, opposition, or 90 degrees to one another, there is a lot of restlessness and a lot of feeling that a change is imminent and absolutely necessary. It creates a need for newness. But on the other hand, it also creates a need to test what is coming, the newness. So naturally, there is a polarization between the old and the new. Those that are not convinced of the new and those that want to accelerate the new. But the end result is always a revolution, always an awakening. Something is shifting when these two come together.
But it's disturbing.
Absolutely. It is disturbing because it shakes the fabric of our security. So the first time they came together was last year, but they stay locked together on and off for about 2 years. And what is very critical is that in the summer of 2010, more specifically the end of July, they are going to come one opposite the other at very critical degrees, which are 0 degrees Aries and 0 degrees Libra. Aries and Libra are the beginning of the zodiac. So they are coming together, opposing one another at the very early, the first degree of the zodiac, which means it's like a new birth.
New
so
beginning.
A new beginning. And so it's not just them coming together in all kinds of different places and creating this commotion, but the fact that they are also at the very beginning of the zodiac. It's like two forces that are at the gate. And whatever is filtering through is going to be influenced by them. So it's very radical. It's very powerful. And what the unique thing that adds to that is that as they come one opposite the other at the end of July, the planet Mars is going to be exactly with Saturn at 0 Libra, and the planet Jupiter is going to be exactly with Uranus at 0 Aries. So you have 4 planets together. You have Uranus and Jupiter at 0 Aries opposing Mars and Saturn at 0 Libra. And God, you know, it's not possible to know exactly what will happen, because there is free will and we have a choice as to how we use this energy. But let's put it this way: in our own personal life, on the political level and on the natural level, which means earth events, it can be very dramatic. You will see people suddenly waking up, suddenly wanting to change their lives completely. And this can be a decision to change a job, it can be a decision to relocate, but it's a feeling like people don't want to wait anymore. They want to take action. They want to do what they always have been waiting to do. Sometimes it's despair that pushes people to take action. Sometimes it's inspiration. But in any case, you're going to have a movement, action, and a lot of restlessness. But if we see this on a positive level, it is an awakening.
But don't you think that movement has already started and will be accumulating then to a tipping point? Or because I guess it's an evolution, not everybody evolves at the same time. I mean,
Yes. Well, as I was saying, this has started, in uh, the past year or even more than that. I mean, the first climax was last fall 2008.
mm-hmm,
So all these points are new climaxes.
mm-hmm,
It's like the volcano is erupting, and there are aftershocks and new eruptions, if you will.
mm-hmm,
But it is similar to when we are talking about these moments, these events, we are talking about a climax. It's not the only one. And between a climax and another, there is a reaction.
mm-hmm.
Because this happens in the aspect is exact during 1 or 2 weeks, but then a reaction can occur 3, 4, 5 weeks later. It's not necessarily happening at the very moment, because even if something is shifting inside of you, you may take action after you regroup and you understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I have to basically say, one thing that is important to remember, is that this is not a time to look for something stable. This is not a time to wait for something to settle down. We are still in a very accelerated movement. And so if people are waiting for a trigger to make some decisions, if people are inspired to do something, it's going to happen. Things will be moving. And it is a time where people will be perhaps more inspired to risk more. As I was saying, perhaps change vocation and do something that is more meaningful, even if they won't feel so financially secure about it at first.
So there's quite a lot of parallel, it seems, with the Maya calendar.
Yes, I mean, in some ways, when we talk about something natural and truthful, you will see it in many different systems. Many systems will reflect similar events.
But